Quoting Spinal Tap for this, the Galaxy Note 4, it's cranking the specs up to 11. Samsung has, price no object, simply put everything into the one super high-end device, added a premium metal chassis, and unsurprisingly, the Note 4 comes in top of every class. I ranked it number 1 in my recent top 5, for example. It's even lust-worthy in terms of materials and design, and I never thought I'd be saying that about a Samsung phone. Of course, since the original Note appeared 3 years ago, phablets, to use that word, have become commonplace. Plus, regular smartphones now routinely up to 5.2-inch screen sizes. Plus, we now have 7-inch tablets pressing down from above. The Galaxy Note 4 here needs to be special in order to be noticed. Happily, it is. Most noticeable are the build materials. It took Samsung years to get here, but at last we have a supremely solid metal chassis and convincing leather effect grippy plastic back, and with no stitching that comes off to reveal Samsung staples like replaceable battery here at 3220 mAh and micro SD expansion. NFC is built into the battery, while there are charging points for a Qi wireless back or case option if needed. The Note 4 being on the big side still, there's plenty of room for a large camera, of which more later, and a largish speaker. Here's a demo. It's easily loud enough and of surprising quality, even if it doesn't quite rival the audio from the twin front-facing cones of some of its current rivals. And in the spirit of everything here but the kitchen sink, there's the same heart rate monitor sensor as on the Galaxy S5, now with extra gadgets, including oxygen saturation in your blood. Don't worry, it turns out I'm pretty healthy. And ultraviolet light measurement, believe it or not. And heck, other S-Health things I never even got around to testing. Plus the infrared beamer here on the top, numerous microphones around the edge, iPhone 4 style aerial use of the sectioned frame. You get the idea. The Note 4 is the entire package. If a large package, it's slightly harder to hold than the previous Notes, if only because of the squarer metal edges. Plus, it remains a two-handed device, unless you have particularly large hands. Yet the sheer speckery on offer here will appeal enormously to geeks and enthusiasts. And note that I haven't even got to the Screen and S Pen yet. The 5.7-inch screen's noteworthy, get it, for being full QHD and with almost perfect colour accuracy. This is hands down the best screen I've ever seen on a phone. The resolution is rarely made best use of, but I'll come to that again later. Can I see the difference between 1080p and a QHD here? Just about, and especially with my new glasses, we're looking at photos at least, if not for textual content. On a 5.7-inch screen, QHD makes marginal sense, but it's insane to use this resolution for anything smaller though. The colours, the brightness are terrific, especially if you override the auto defaults and crank things up manually. Of course, you then start hitting the battery far more, so it's a personal call as to how bright you go. Below the QHD screen are the usual Samsung 2014 capacitive buttons with recent apps here on the left and back on the right. It's not an issue, you do get used to the placement in minutes. The central physical home button feels excellent and has obviously been upgraded, not least to include a fingerprint scanner. I told you the Note 4 had every gadget under the sun. It uses a swipe system and it's a bit rubbish. Using the Note 4 in real life and out and about, I often had to have 2 or 3 tries at trying to unlock the screen with my thumbprint, and once I had to wait out the full 30-second hacking timeout. It's not a patch on the one-touch finger recognition in the Apple iPhones of 2013 and 2014. The inductive S Pen still isn't the most natural implement in the world, but Air Command, which launches by default when you extract the pen, does a sterling job of grabbing text and images ready for pasting and elsewhere, typically into the likes of S Note. It's an acquired taste, but at least it all works as advertised. I have to say that in a year of owning and using the Note 2, I only used the S Pen once, apart from demos. Your mileage will vary though. Possibly useful to some of the usual Note multitasking features. You'll still use applications one at a time, of course. The human brain isn't as good at doing more than one thing at a time. Here, though, are echoes of a desktop UI with many, but not all, of the applications working in pop-up mode, in which you can resize their window or minimize them altogether to a floating icon. Ditto multi-window mode with applications paned across the display, or even paned with a third app on top in pop-up mode. The result can sometimes be a little confusing, albeit not that much worse than when multitasking a lot on, say, a laptop. Away from all these extras, the Note 4 is a supremely capable Android powerhouse with up to a 2.7 GHz Snapdragon 805 processor and 3 GB of RAM, gulp. Even internal storage has been bumped up to 32 GB plus micro SD. The original Note was declared by me on the phone show back in the day to be the most powerful Android device I'd ever tested at the time, and the Notes have continued to be right on the cutting edge throughout their history. The cameras included have continued to improve too, with the Note range competing against the Galaxy S range for use of the best in Samsung imaging. The Note 4 features an excellent and fast 16 megapixel unit with OIS for stills and video to keep shots and footage super crisp. There's also phase detection autofocusing for really fast focusing, and the impression is that it works really well in low light conditions. There are the usual Samsung imaging modes and gimmicks, though sensibly limited here by default, and with a big fat download button for anyone who wants to add them manually to the mode carousel. You can turn on UHD, Ultra HD video, which works out to 8 megapixel frame shots. The idea being that you shoot video first and then fiddle around for hours in the video player trying to get a specific frame. Tap, 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 tap. In addition to being very time consuming, the quality of each frame grab is a long way below that of individually taken photos, so you'd be better off just holding down the capture icon and shooting a 6-second burst of up to 30 shots like this. For example, when your kid nears the finish line in a race, and then picking the best ones of the bunch. UHD video also eats up storage at a truly frightening rate. There's an indicator in the viewfinder which shows tens of megabytes disappearing almost as fast as you can read the numbers. Just stick to 1080p for now, trust me. Like all Samsungs of recent times, the TouchWiz skin is applied over, in this case Android 4.4, complete with extra home screens and app launcher functions, plus some extra applications including S-Voice and a Samsung keyboard. You'll note from the shortness of this list that TouchWiz and Samsung's app ambitions have been scaled down hugely since 2013. TouchWiz is now pretty usable and not that confusing on most Samsung smartphones. However, the Note 4 isn't most phones. The QHD display simply cries out for more sophistication in the UI, and the typically cartoony Samsung icons, UI controls and keyboard look glaringly out of place against the possibilities that such a high-resolution screen could realise. Where's the beauty? Where's the sophistication? If you're going to have TouchWiz and these icons and controls displayed, then you really don't need this screen. The 1080p screen of the Note 3 would have done just fine, and you'd have had longer battery life and the device would have been cheaper. Cutting Samsung a little slack, they have made progress in the last 12 months, plus a skin over Android 5 and Lollipop is imminent, yay! So perhaps that will introduce a better fit for a true QHD display, we'll see. Also notably added to the TouchWiz interface here are Briefing, a flipboard variant positioned off to the left of the default home screen, and yes, it's possible to remove this if you don't like it. Plus the familiar ultra power saving mode, reducing the Note 4 to a monochrome feature phone but eking out power at an astonishing rate. So for example, you might get to 10% left on the Note 4 by 7 PM and head out down the pub, but in ultra power saving mode, knowing that you'll easily get through the evening and be contactable or be able to call a cab at the end. The very best Galaxy Note so far by a huge margin never has the expression slab of high tech been so relevant. The Note 4 fits almost every smartphone feature and bullet point you can think of into the one premium frame. That it's also one of the most reassuringly expensive phones you can buy is expected.